Walk down the cleaning aisle of any hardware store and you will see them. Small white tubs of crystals sitting on the shelf, 12, 15, $18 a piece. You buy one, take it home, set it in your damp basement or your closet or your boat. A few weeks later, the crystals are gone, melted into a tub of liquid at the bottom, and you throw the whole thing in the trash and go buy another and another and another. Year in, year out, 40, 60, $80 a year, every year for a tub of salt and a plastic bowl. Now, I want you to sit with this. The white crystals in that tub are a thing you can buy in a 40-pound bag at any pool supply store or hardware store or farm store for about $4. The same crystals, the same chemistry, marked up 3 or 4 times, dressed up in a branded tub, sold to you as a thing to throw away. And nobody tells you what I'm about to tell you today. That when those crystals have done their work and turned to liquid, you are not finished with them, not even close. You can take that liquid, set it in your oven for a few hours, and the very same crystals come back out, dry and ready to work again. The compound never wore out, it just got full. And there is no money in telling you that. I am Amish and I farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Now, I want to be honest with you right at the start, the way I always am. This is not something my grandfather did. The crystals I am going to show you came out of a chemist's bag, not out of a barn loft. So I will not pretend it is an old Amish secret. That would be a lie, and you can spot one easy. But this lives by the oldest rule my grandfather ever taught me. Waste nothing, and never let yourself be sold the same thing twice that you could have used forever. My people have always known how to deal with damp by ventilation, by lime-washed cellar walls, by hanging a cellar door open on a dry day, by where you put the spring house. This is a newer tool, but it follows the old rule, and once you know it, you will not be reaching for those tubs at the store again. Stay with me. Let me first say a true word about what damp actually does, because most folks think it is just a smell, a closet that smells musty, a basement that smells of earth. It is more than that. Damp air sitting in a closed space is doing quiet, slow harm the whole time you're not looking. It feeds the mildew on your leather boots, in the green spots on the wall behind the dresser. It rusts the tools in your shed, in the springs in your bed. It softens the cardboard boxes you stored in the attic and rots the paper in the books in your basement. It darkens wood. It puts that particular smell in a boat you closed up for winter or a hunting cabin you locked up in October and walked back into in April. The folks who study these things say once the air in a closed space gets damper than about 60 parts in 100, mold can start growing on a surface in a day or two. You cannot scrub your way out of that. You have to take the water out of the air. The question is only how. The big stores will sell you a powered machine for $200 or $300 that does it. A compressor, a fan, a drain, a thing you must plug into the wall and listen to and pay to run. And for a flooded basement, that machine is the right tool, and I will tell you so honestly. But for the everyday damp, the closet, the small basement, the boat in winter, the cabin in storage, the shed, the gun safe, the camper, the storage unit, the pantry, there is something far simpler and cheaper, and it needs no power at all. It is a bucket and $4 of salt. So let me tell you about the salt itself, because the chemistry is the real magic, and once you see it, you will not forget it. The crystals you want are called calcium chloride. You can buy a bag of it at any pool supply store, hardware store, or farm supply for about $4. The very same crystals they use to melt the ice on the roads in winter, the same the food companies use to keep their pickles crisp. Get the pellet or the flake kind, not the powder. Now here is what this stuff does, and it surprises people every time they see it work. Calcium chloride is what chemists call thirsty. They have a longer word for it, but thirsty is the right word. It pulls water vapor right out of the air around it with a strength most other things cannot match. The little silica gel packets you find in shoeboxes and beef jerky, those work too, but they will absorb perhaps a quarter of their own weight in water before they are spent. Calcium chloride keeps drinking. It can take in many times its own weight in water. Under the right conditions, the chemistry can keep going until the crystals have dissolved themselves into a puddle of brine. They do not just stop and quit. They keep working all the way to liquid. And here is the small marvel. It needs no electricity, no fan, no motor, no pump. Set it in a closed space and it works silently while you sleep. It does not whine, it does not hum, and it does not raise your power bill by a penny. It just sits there and quietly pulls the wet out of the air. Here is how you build it, and it really is this simple. You need a bag of calcium chloride, $4 at the pool supply store. You need a bucket or a deep bowl. You have one. And you need something to keep the crystals up out of the brine as they melt. Because if they sit in their own water, they stop working. A plastic colander, the kind your wife strains noodles in, set down into the top of the bucket so it rests on the rim. That is the whole thing. Or you can use 2 stacked food-safe pails with holes drilled in the bottom of the top one. Either works. Pour the calcium chloride pellets into the colander, 2 or 3 inches deep. Set it on top of the bucket. Put the whole thing in the closet or the corner of the basement or wherever the damp is, and walk away. That is the build. What will happen over the next days and weeks? The crystals will start to look wet, then to clump, then slowly to melt, to turn to a clear liquid that drips through the colander into the bucket below. That liquid is the water that used to be in the air of that room. Watch the bucket fill, and you are watching the room dry. When the colander is empty and the bucket is full of liquid, you have not lost a thing. You have just gathered all the damp the crystals could hold. A few honest, practical words, because I will not let you build it wrong. 1. Each bucket only works on the air right around it, say 3 to 5 FT. For a closet or a small room, 1 is fine. For a larger basement, set out 2 or 3 of them spread along the walls. Calcium chloride does not pull from across a room the way a fan does. It works on the air close by. 2. Put the bucket on something the brine cannot harm. The liquid that drips into the bucket is salty water, and salt water is corrosive. It will pit metal and stain concrete. Set it on a board or a glass tray or an old plate. Don't set it directly on a nice wood floor or on metal. A cheap caution. 3. Keep the crystals out of reach of children and pets. They are not deadly, but they are eye-irritating and skin-irritating, with much contact in the brine especially so. Treat it like the lye or the boric acid I have spoken of before. Useful tool kept up where it belongs. That is the whole build. $40, a few minutes, and a bucket. No power. Now here is the part the company that sells you the throwaway tub will never put on the label. The part that turns a $4 bag into a thing you can use again and again. When the crystals have all dissolved into the bucket of brine, you might think the job is done that you toss the brine and buy a new bag. You do not have to. That brine is the same calcium chloride. It is just full of water now, and if you drive the water back out, the dry crystals come right back. The compound itself is not used up. It cannot be used up. You just need to take the water back out, and the way to do that is heat. You pour the brine carefully into a glass baking dish. A glass dish, not a metal one, because the salty water will eat at metal. Set your oven to a good hot temperature, around 400 degrees F, what they call about 200 degrees Celsius. Somewhere in that neighborhood. Slide the dish in and leave it for 2 or 3 hours until all the water has steamed out and what is left in the bottom of the dish is dry crystals again. Let it cool. Knock the dry crystals back out into a sealed jar, a glass jar with a tight lid, because if you leave them out in the air, they will start pulling water again right then and there. A few honest cautions on this step too, because you should know them. Open a window or run the kitchen fan while you do it, because all that water is going somewhere. It is steaming into your kitchen air, and you do not want to dump the damp you just removed from the basement back into the kitchen. Vent it out. Use glass, not metal. I will say it again because it matters. The brine is salty and corrosive. It will eat a metal pan over time. Glass is the right choice, and it is also easy to clean. Do not crank the oven any hotter trying to rush it. Past about 400 HT, you start to change the chemistry of the salt itself, and it will not work as well. Slow and steady is right. And one honest thing the salesman will never say, you can do this many times, but not forever. Each cycle, the crystals come back a touch less perfect than they were because a little is lost each time, especially in very damp climates. But many cycles you will get out of one $4 bag easily. Many months, often a year or more, out of the same crystals instead of throwing them away after a few weeks. That is the difference between a thing they sell you and a thing you own. Now, I owe you the honest limits because I will not let you build this and then be disappointed that it did not do what no $4 bucket of salt could ever do. This is for damp, not for wet. If your basement walls are running with water because the foundation leaks or the cellar floods or there is water coming in from the outside, this is not the tool for that. That is a job for fixing the leak and yes, possibly a powered dehumidifier. This bucket is for the everyday damp that hangs in the air of a closed space. It works best in enclosed spaces. A closet, a small basement room with the door kept shut, a gun safe, a tackle box, a boat or camper that has been shut up for the winter, a pantry, a storage unit, a tool drawer, a cabin closed up between visits. Smaller and closed is best. A big open room with the doors and windows in and out all day, the bucket cannot keep up with that. Use it where the air sits still. It is a quiet tool, not a fast one. A powered machine pulls a lot of water out of the air in a hurry with its fan. The bucket works slow and steady, a little at a time, drying the air around it day after day, week after week. For most of what most folks need, keeping a closet dry, keeping mildew out of a stored camper, keeping the smell out of a pantry, slow and steady is exactly the right speed. Cheaper, quieter, no power, never breaks. But know what it is and what it is not. If you have one bad damp basement and a wet flood, you may want both a powered machine for the heavy work and these buckets to keep things dry afterward. They work fine together. Honest is better than impressive. Now I want to take a moment because this is the part that matters and it is bigger than the $4. Think about what this whole little setup means. A bag of salt at the hardware store, $4, a bowl and a colander from your own kitchen, nothing. Reusable again and again with an hour or two of oven heat. And on the other side of the aisle, an entire industry, billions of dollars a year, built on selling you that same $4 of salt in a small plastic tub for $12 or $15 and asking you to throw it away and buy it again next month. The compound did not change. The chemistry did not change. What changed is whether you know that you can pour the liquid in your oven and bring the crystals right back. This is the pattern I keep coming back to, because once you see it everywhere. There is good money in selling a man a thing he must keep buying. There is no money in telling him how to make one bag last him a year. So nobody puts "this can be regenerated" on the side of the tub. And nobody runs a commercial showing you the oven trick, and a whole nation buys the same bag of salt 15 times when they could have bought it once. That is not exactly a conspiracy. Nobody is hiding it. It is just that a system that profits from your repeat buying will never go out of its way to teach you not to. My people have always tried to live the other way. A thing that can be fixed, you fix. A thing that can be reused, you reuse. A tool you bought once should serve you and your children both. The bucket and the salt are not Amish, but the habit of mind behind them. Make it last. Do not be sold the same thing twice is as old as my grandfather's toolbox and as old as any plain home in this county. So, here is what I want you to do. This weekend, go to the pool supply store or the hardware store and ask for a bag of calcium chloride pellets. $40, take it home. Find a bucket and a colander or a deep bowl you have lying around. Pour in 2 or 3 inches of pellets, set the colander on the bucket, and put it in the dampest closet or basement corner you have got. Set another one in the boat if you have one, or the camper, or the gun safe, or the storage unit. Wherever the damp has been a problem, come back a few weeks later, see the bucket fill. Pour the brine into a glass baking dish, 400 degree in the oven. 2 or 3 hours. Window open, let it cool. Knock the dry crystals back into a glass jar with a tight lid. The same $4 working again. And tell me in the comments below, what is the dampest spot in your house? The one you have been throwing those store-bought tubs at? The basement, the boat, the cabin, the gun safe, the closet that always smells. And once you have built one of these and run a cycle, come back and tell me how it went. How much liquid you caught. What kind of climate you live in. I read every single one, and the things you all teach each other in those comments help every new person learn faster. Next time, since we have been speaking of moisture in closed spaces, I'm going to show you the old plain way my people built cellars and pantries that stayed dry without any salt or any machine at all. The lime-washed walls, the cross-draft, the placement, the small habits that kept food storage rooms sweet for generations. It is the older cousin to today's bucket, and the two of them together can keep your storage spaces in good order for a very long time. Until then, use a thing once, use it again, waste nothing, and remember the people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember. If this story changes the way you look at those expensive tubs in the cleaning aisle, please subscribe and like the channel. We are unearthing the practical wisdom that the modern world tried to make you forget. Let's build a future that lasts. The next treasure of knowledge will be open soon.